I think we can all get ready to reveal the honor books, GLF WWF honor books 2021. Welcome Ridhima Pandey. I think Ridhima needs very little introduction. She is a young climate champion. She has been, advocating for climate action since she was just 9 years old. And in 2020, the BBC listed her on 100 most influential women from around the world. So I think it's great that we have you here, Ridhima. Maybe a few words, and then we can have the honor book reveals.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for introducing me. I was listening to the discussion. I mean, I was not here since the beginning, but the bits I listened, I feel like, most of the people, there are, the writers of the books here and mostly like writers and readers. So I feel kind of like I'm not a person to reflect much because, I told this to Meghadi that, I was not fond of books. I was not a vivid reader, and I just found books to be boring. And specifically, for my activism, I used to read, like articles and stuff, and I used to read those summaries that come up. But when I saw the books, it just felt like, I have to read a book. But gradually, it changed. I started working with people on books. Giving my point of views and stuff like that. And after a point of time, I just felt like reading books are important. It is important for me. And specifically because, books have such, even if it's kind of like a story related to environment, or, if it's a friction related, book, or if it's something, related to a specific animal or to something, it just gives us specifically to me, it gave me so much exposure because I used to read stuff. And because my main work is around advocating. So what I feel like is that, when I used to read books, I used to have these things, that I used to have those stories with me. So when I used to go to kids, I used to tell them, that I read this book, and this was, giving them a brief summary, and them enjoying that made me feel like, reading books is important for me, but also for my activism. It gives me a lot of knowledge. It, gives me an exposure to tell everyone, the books, and, to recommend that to others, and, have that kind of a sense in my mind that, I've read these things. And because I even had unearthed, which was kind of like a struggle for me in the beginning, but now I'm kind of like, getting used to reading such books, and I am kind of trying to have the stuff going on. But yeah, I have a lot of books. I am still not a great reader, but I'm trying my best, and it's kind of fun, reading books rather than kind of spending my whole time, like, my whole day on my tablets, or, on internet and stuff like that. But yeah, still kind of like a person who is trying to read, but it's a good thing, and I would recommend that to others as well, because once you start reading, you will get used to it, and you will actually get addicted to it. It's kind of like, I have to read like at least for 1 hour, or I'll feel like, I haven't done something, there is something that is missing from my routine. So yeah, it is something which is hard to, get into your schedule, but once you get it, you will be like, it is a great thing. So yeah.
I think to all our viewers, thank you, RK. That is the GLF WWF Honor Books Children's Shortlist, Ridhima, that was on our screen just a while ago. And it really shows how much children's publishing has come of age in India, and the kind of subjects that we're handling. Even within the green space, a lot of people were even surprised that there's so much of green literature being published, in our country, and so much of it for not just children, but practically for anyone interested in getting into this space. So yes, Ridhima, I think everyone's seen the shortlist, and now it's time for you to announce the honor books. So yes, I just have a little quick word to RK. We can have the certificates pop up once Ridhima announces. Oh, oops, the first certificate has come up even before she announced it. Okay, Ridhima, maybe you can just read out.
Okay, so the the owner books are Making Friends with Snake, but from a Distance by Rohan Chakravarti. You can see the.
Okay, before we get the next one, please wait. Rohan is anyways here with us, but Rohan, we are going to have to wait a few more minutes before we begin that conversation with you. But do stay on screen, yes. Okay, Ridhima, what is the next book?
The next book is Sahi's Quest by Yuvan Avis and Anusha Menon.
Okay, can we have the certificate for that? Okay, yay! Yay for Yuvan and yay for Anusha. Okay, let's have the next one.
The next one is A Tigress Called Machli by Supriya Sehgal, one of
Tigress
mostly,
call much.
loved book.
Yes, okay, yay for Supriya. Supriya,
Um,
if you're there, you can come up on screen. Yeah.
I am here, Megha.
All
Thanks.
right.
This is so
Okay.
kind. Thank you, guys.
Ridhima, the next one.
yeah, the next one is 10 Indian Champions Fighting to Save the Planet by Bijal V and Radha Rangaranjan.
Okay, Bijal and Radha are here. Their certificate is up on screen. Bijal and Radha, you can come up on screen. I
Okay,
think, yes, the next
yeah, I
one.
see. Yeah.
There's,
The next one is Crave Pie School for the Recently Deceased by Anita Roy.
yes, Anita is also with us. So a big yay to Bijal and Radha and Anita. And thank you so much, Ridhima, for announcing our award-winning books today. Thank you so much. And
Thank you.
now you're most welcome, Ridhima. Really, thank you for doing this. And now can I have Archana Atri on screen, please? So for those of you who don't know, Archana Atri has been revolutionizing reading in the NCR for more than 10 years now. She's been independently encouraging children to pick up books and read. And her book club is called, AA's Book Nerds. And she was our jury moderator, along with the two adult jury advisors who spent a lot of time with the children in determining the books that have been honored today. So, Archana, I think I'm going to leave this conversation to you. And yes, I think we are all waiting to hear from everyone on the books that were chosen. And yes.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. I'm so glad to be here at the Greenlit Fest and looking at the books and the authors who are here. Anita, I think Anita's here. Yeah. Hi, Anita's here. Supriya. Yes. Bijal and Radha and Rohan and Anusha. Congratulations, all of you, for, yes, fabulous books, fabulous reads. And with all the books that we had, as Bijal and Radha had mentioned in their book itself, lists, getting down, reading, going through. So you can imagine. But this was a fabulous set of books that we've been reading through the past month and more. And the children, the jury, you heard what they had to say. They're all believers. So it was absolutely fabulous. I always believe that anyone working with children in any form, whether you're writing, whether you're illustrating, publishing, or me with my book club, we all have to be believers. And when Nicola Davies was here and she was talking about communicating that fizz and that buzz, and I think that's what your books are doing, the way that in the quirky, in the easy, in the fun, in every which way, the way the words have been used, the way the images have been used to just communicate that passion and that fervor for literature, for the environment. It's just been absolutely marvelous. Supriya, your book Machli was just like it was, most of the children had this to say, that it was like reading a bedtime story. So where you had the other good time tales, you had good night stories for rebel girls, etc. These were the environmental tales that they listened to, was like listening to them, reading them, like the Dadi Nani ki kahaniyan. Those were kind of stories. And it was really, really nice. Would you like to share something more about your experiences while writing the book? I mean, I know you're a travel journalist. Would you call that
Right.
travel journalist or?
Yeah, I've actually straddled a whole lot of other things as well, but travel was there for me for 15 years of my life. Thank you so much. And I feel so honored to be here in such great company. Oh my God, it's just so good. And thanks so much for the feedback, for what the kids felt. And I think this year and the year before this, we've had a lot of interactions with kids on, I've had quizzes with them, etc. And they get so involved. I think animals are such a great sort of, getting minds to come together, and kids sharing their own, stories about pets and their, travels around the world and in India. So it's been a very thrilling experience for me. The post-writing of the book has been equally thrilling as it was writing. I actually didn't set out to write the book specifically. It was stories collected over time where I had traveled for the last 15 years. And really thanks to Nimi and Vatsala from Hatchet to actually bring it together with me. It was really cool. And I think every story was so special because it had such a personal take to it, because it was about humans and in the interaction with animals. But my own favorite would be the one that's about a man called Latif who feeds kites in Jodhpur, Mehrangarh Fort. One of the more heartwarming stories that actually literally stuck to my head, and still when I do go back sometimes, I'd love to meet him, and I do when I go back. But yeah, thank you so much. It's been really thrilling.
Yeah. It was a thrilling read also. Anita, your book again, Grave Pyres, was just, there was just so much to it, not just the way it was written, the wordplay, the language. There was that literary element to it, which was really very interesting and strong, the fantasy. And what was very interesting with the children when they read the book was the environment, or the ecology, the environment, the climate. References to those weren't shoved down your throat, right? So so it was all there. But the way in which they took it out of the story, for me, that was very important, and that was very interesting, because it's as one of the children said, that there are infinite ways in which you can please a reader. And I think that was the beauty in your book, that it wasn't all laid out. You had to glean as much as you could from the book as you read it. So would you like to share something on that about your book? Because that's the beauty of it. There wasn't any one element or strand, but the way they came together was just so beautiful.
Well, thank you, Archana. I've been just grinning really for days now since I got to hear that I was on the book was being shortlisted. Yeah. In a way for its environmental message, because it's not kind of front and center in the way that some of the other books are, and also secondly because the jury is made up of kids, and what amazing kids they are. I mean, I've just been kind of slightly awestruck by Raghavan and Celesta and the others, and it's just like, oh my goodness, they're so young and they're so articulate and they're so amazing. So one of the things that I really like that Raghavan just said in the session before this one was about finding your audience, the right level for your audience. And I particularly like that because it's really hard to actually pinpoint, because all 14-year-olds are different and all 6-year-olds are different, and 6-year-olds are also different from 14-year-olds. And so as a publisher, I was always really struggling with how do you kind of pinpoint the age appropriateness of things. And I really have to hand it to my editor Kartika at Westland Books, because at one point, and this book took forever to write. I mean, it was just such a long process. In fact, my son yesterday was saying, Mum, I was telling my friends that he's now at university, that she started writing this book when I was 8. It's kind of grown up with him. I don't think he ever believed it would actually be out. I certainly didn't. But yeah, it's a book which Kartika at one point said to me, don't worry about writing it for a particular age. Just write the story as you want to write it. If we need to tweak the language later, we'll do that. But I think what I've learned from writing the book is that, and maybe this is something that the kids can also take away when they're thinking of, or anyone really, if you're thinking of writing a book, is don't pre-censor yourself in terms of who you think the audience might be. Write the book that's from your heart. Write the book that you yourself would want to read, and let it take you on a journey. I certainly didn't realize that my story, which started off with a single line, which was homework, but I'm dead. That was it. That was the kind of beginning of this story that takes you into mortality and talking vultures and journeys and death and ecology and environmental catastrophe and issues about time and all sorts of things. It just sort of came from like very quietly and slowly over many years following that thread.
Yeah. Even the title of your book, The Grey Fire School for the Recently, it was just something that when I saw it, I said, oh, this is interesting. What could it be about? And then, of course, there were the vultures and just a whole story about the vultures. And, and now with COVID, and so when I was looking at it, in the context of COVID and death.
Yeah, I mean, there was a very tricky point at which the book was just about to come out and COVID hit. Yeah. And I seriously wondered, and my publishers thought very hard about whether it was even appropriate to publish a book for children about death at a time when mortality and fragility is so front and center, and people were losing their loved ones, and everything was very, very emotionally and physically very difficult to negotiate. And again, credit to my publishers. They said, actually, at this point, this is probably the best point for a book like this to be talking, to be published, because it's a way of opening conversations, which can be extremely difficult. And I don't know any conversation which is as difficult as mortality and climate change. These are hugely, almost impossibly difficult subjects to look at head on. Yeah. And so you need to find ways of being able to address them. They're absolutely central to all of our lives. There's no one that escapes this, but we need to find ways of talking about them at every age. And I think, for me, Grave Fires is a book as much for adults as kids, because it doesn't get any easier.
Yes, absolutely. When I read it, I teared up because it was very close to home.
Yes, this is what I want. I want to make people basically cry.
It's especially when I read the ending with the seed of hope, and it was just so beautiful. So yes, actually, as we're talking about age, I think all books, whether I was reading Machli, I was reading all the other books, picture books, I'm a huge fan of. So I really don't think that there is this whole thing about when we are talking about what age for what book. It really depends on what it says to you, what the book says to you, what the words say to you. So it was fabulous. And again, when you're talking about emotions, that's what I feel with children's books in particular, the emotions have to be out there. If you don't feel the emotions, to communicate that to the children, that passion and that fervor, that's how it will go on to the children. And that's where I would like to congratulate Rohan, his passion and his fervor, and the comics that he brings through. His book was, it's a fabulous book because of the way in which he's communicating his passion. So when people say keep emotions aside, no, don't keep emotions aside. Get them into your work, get them into your book. That's what the children are going to see. So Rohan, congratulations. That was absolutely such a beautiful book. And the way it's been just said, really bringing to, the snake is the hero in your story.
Thanks a lot, Archana. I'm actually really surprised that the book made it to the shortlist because there are some fabulous entries alongside. It's actually a very simple and a very straightforward book. So I wonder how it even made it to the list. It's more of a manual to me rather than a storybook, you know. So it's really that simple. And maybe it is the simplicity that struck a chord with the jury, or maybe it was my good looks and charm. I don't really know.
Maybe all of it.
Or maybe it was the very good-looking protagonists, Dhaman and Nagin, the rat snake and the cobra. I hope that is the case. So thanks a lot. It's a real honor being in the list.
So I've been working with children for more than a decade now. I host I run a book club, and my one thing is no books have a protagonist. That's what schools tell you. There's a protagonist in the book. Okay. And the story has to be from the point of view of the protagonist. Here, I didn't see any protagonist. There was no snake. Could be Mitali was a protagonist. Could be anyone who's a part of that story. So for me, this was, that's the beauty of this, that there are so many other characters, not just the snakes. And that's where it goes to, you know, talking about nature, talking about bringing animals closer to you, especially in our kind of condominiums that we're living in. I don't think my children have seen a snake, a real live snake in their life. And the children around here, I don't have rats coming up. I don't have lizards coming up. Yet they are there. They're a part of our environment. They're part of the ecology. They're part of our ecosystem. So definitely when you're saying, why did this comic book make it here? It made it here because you're telling children about something which they haven't really seen. You know, I grew up with, my dad was in the Air Force, so places we lived in, there were snakes. Snake skins, we would pick up the snake skins and they'd carry them with us to whichever places we were transferred to, etc. So also the style of writing, I think that again was very interesting. And that really is something that you brought to children's literature in just such a fabulous way. So that you are here, you were meant to be here.
Thank you. I must give credit to Romulus Whitaker, who runs the Madras Crocodile Bank Trust and is a renowned herpetologist. And it was actually his infectious enthusiasm about snakes that, you know, went on into the book. And I really must thank him for choosing me to collaborate over this. And I also owe gratitude to Pratham Books, Bijal and Aparna, who edited the book, for ensuring distribution, because that is what made all the difference. It was translated into 9 regional languages and distributed across the country. And I hope that it is helping kids across the country make friends with snakes, but from a distance. Another thing I'd like to point out is that the issue of snake bite and the relationship between people and snakes is not often seen as a social issue. And I hope that is something that I will be able to change with this publication.
Okay. That's okay, Bijal. And I think what is very interesting is the next book is that I would like to welcome Bijal and Radha with your 10 Indian champions fighting to save the planet. And what for me is particularly interesting about this book, 10 Indian, Bijal and Radha, I can't see you here. Okay, what I found really this thing about their book is we're talking about superheroes with capes. And that's what we're looking at here. We are looking at our green heroes with their green capes. And that's why for me, 10 Indian Champions was a particularly interesting book. Because when I'm talking to children and working with children, that's what the children want. They want to know about the real people, the ones who are working. And that's why this was very interesting, because Rohan is one of the children that one of the characters that my children were saying should be, oh, he's another green superhero. And then we have the super sheroes and the superheroes. And that's why for me, this book was very important, because it brings the champions closer to the people in the environmental, to the children in the environmental context. Bijal and Radha, Are they, something's gone wrong with the Megha?
No, Bijal and Radha are here.
Here, Archana.
Okay,
Hi.
sorry, I can't see you for some reason. Yeah, I can see Radha and I couldn't see Bijal, and yeah, sorry, must be something wrong with my screen. As I was reading about your book and the way that, you know, getting the hundreds down to 50s and 60s, etc. What was the process like for you in writing about the 10 Indian champions? And of course, there are so many more.
Thank you, Archana, for all the wonderful things you have said, and to the jury for shortlisting us. I'm going to let Radha tell you this, because when it comes to listicles, she's the BuzzFeed out of the two of us.
Hi, Archana. Thank you so much. And it's a real honor to win this and, you know, just be a part of this list. Great company. So yeah, it goes very well with all of my OCD senses, you know, to make a lot of lists. And even now I have like 20 post-its of different colors everywhere. So I know exactly which list to look at when. Not that I'm very efficient or anything, but lists are nice to make. So that's where it is. But, you know, yeah, like Bijal and I went through a lot of different phases of wondering, you know, who should be a part of this book. And of course, we always keep going back to the greats who are, you know, the people who did everything and set up the stage for everybody now to work on, you know, issues that are coming up, or, you know, take successes forward. So we always keep going back to names like Dr. Salim Ali or Indira Gandhi, who set up Project Tiger, or, you know, the Fateh Ali family, for example, who have been instrumental in so many of the successes that we, you know, many of us are part of today. But we realized that at the end of the day, we need to look at the audience, like how all the jury members were talking about earlier. We have to look at the audience, and we have to give them someone who is relatable, who is present now, who is posting on Instagram, who is, you know, tweeting every day about a certain issue. So, you know, that's where someone like Rohan comes into picture, because they have a person they can look up to, whom they can follow and they can learn from. So that's why we went this route and found people who are working right now and are working in a very relatable fashion for a younger audience. So that's where it comes in.
Yeah, absolutely. And just so, I mean, just so brilliantly done. In fact, when you're saying how to, I remember when I was talking to my nerds about, you know, when Greta Thunberg had come and all, and that was, all the other stories would emerge, that there's a Greta there, but we have this one, but we also have so-and-so. There's just so many people who are doing such fabulous work that really I can, you know, just about imagine how it, you know, where do you get who, and, you know, put down the list. And again, as I said, for us, this was particularly important because the children want to know the real people. So fiction, yes, non-fiction, yes, but who are the people who matter and who have done what they have? So for me, the last story was also very interesting, where you're talking about, not the last, the Dharavi Rocks, yes, but there was also the one on food for all.
Yeah.
You know, and for me, that was very interesting, because we have the other book, which was also part of our long list, was A No Nonsense Nandini. And I just saw between the two of them, there was just such a beautiful connection that I was seeing there, that, you know, you're looking at the knowledge that is coming out from the grassroots. And there is Nandini. Nandini was somebody, a lot of children who read it, my nerds and the others that I would talk to, loved it for that reason. That, you know, there is knowledge which doesn't have to be top down. It's coming from the farmers, coming from the people. And that's what your stories were all about. You know, that's what the people that you looked at. For me, that was very interesting. And I'm sure the children are really going to enjoy this book for that reason. That these are people that they can reach out to and, you know, see the work happening. So thank you for this book. This is truly a fabulous book.
I think I just want to add here, Archana, that the credit actually does go to our editor, Shayani and Ayushi of Duckbill PRH, because they gave us the freedom to navigate the people who we wanted to talk about, but also the approach where we said we'd like to go and meet each and or talk to each and every person. And that kind of freedom and flexibility just helped us with these stories.
And it must have been so rewarding for you too, to just sit there and talk to these kind of people. And for the children, yes, to read the stories, but for you guys to go and meet them and talk to them, that must have been a fabulous, I mean, for the authors themselves, the act of creating a book must be just so special.
I think for us, every time we'd step back from a conversation, both of us just would be like, how are we going to put this down into this many words? Because all of them, including Rohan and Kavita and Dharavi Rocks, everyone has done such amazing work. So to condense it was such a challenge, but they also had, you know, what was amazing, Archana, was that almost every single person, when we approached them and said, we'd like to feature you in the book, and they said, why me? There's so many other people.
Yes, there are so many other people doing so much, but there's the one person, one star that if I can touch, I'm happy with. So I'm glad with this book. I'm really happy with this book. And Yuvan, I think, was not able to join us. Anusha is here with Sahi's Quest. Again, a very, very, it was just such a, I think just an aside for me maybe, but all the books are in some ways a quest. You know, all the books that we have here in some ways as a quest, there's a searching, there's a reaching out to, there's a looking for. And that, I think, was the beauty with all these 5 books that we have here on our list. And Sahi's Quest was just such a gentle story. You know, the way it just took us with her, took us through the journey of the journey through this book was just so gentle and just so beautiful. The illustrations, I can't even hold it up. People will have to buy the book and read it. But the whole book was just so beautifully done. Anusha, if you're here, would you like to share something with us about the illustrations for the book and the story while you were illustrating it?
Yes. First of all, I'd like to thank you for including me in this list. And it's such an honor to be here, especially from an illustrator's point of view. I'm like a huge fangirl of Rohan's comic series, and especially the latest digs he's been doing, about the cop. I'm really glad to read all that. But yeah, I think the illustration process really, you brought up this point about there being no protagonist, and that we're all together. So in the process of illustrating these books, I especially trying to get as much detail as possible, because that's something I remember enjoying a lot when I was a young reader. I would love detailed illustrations and I would love getting lost in them. So I wanted to try my best to give another kid the same sense of wonder and details to just swallow and go through and look at again and again. I hope I've managed to do that, but that's something I keep trying to do. And because of getting into the details, you just have this feeling of yes, there is no protagonist, and we're all parts of the environment, and everything that's cycling through the environment goes through every single unit and every single creature that is part of it. So that was what illustrating the book was like for me, and it's always an educational process for me, that whenever I end up collaborating with an author or illustrating a book that way, I just learn so much about the environment through that process. So it's really my way of interacting with the world, through getting immersed in the space and really getting into the whole process of illustration, observation, and then trying to meditate upon what that creature does in the environment. Really, I'm always in awe of it keeps me in awe of the world, and it makes me want to protect it because it's so beautiful. And but the problem I personally face, which I feel listening to the kids today really helped me a lot, because I tend to get really bogged down and depressed about the way things are going. And like you read a lot of doomsday stories, like this forest has been cut down here, or these tribals are being evicted from here. And it's really, really heavy, and it's really sad to read about all this. But like, and the discourse online is very like doom. There's so much doom, but listening to like the kids today and the panelists, and how articulate they are, and how well they connect with nature, and how determined they are, and how much agency they already have. Like they already feel like they owe it to the planet, and they already feel like they want to protect it too. And they already feel confident that, you know, we can tell the adults what to do. I loved hearing that so much, because I mean, as adults, like we were also kids once, right? And we know what it's like to be talked down to and told to like step aside and all. But I don't think we have time for that anymore. And like we have to work together. And I'm so happy that this event gave the kids a whole hour to talk about it and inspire us, because I'm walking away from this talk feeling very inspired and feeling like I want to draw more and like keep doing what I do. And hopefully, because see, like what the kids learn is like what we kind of tell them in stories as well, but then they come back and read the stories and tell us what they think about it. So we get feedback. So I think that feedback process is very, very important, and we can inspire kids, and the same goes for us being inspired back by them. So that's really what I wanted to talk about mostly. And I wish Yuvan were here today, because he's such an important nature educator as well. Like he takes kids out right into the forest and shows them what I've just done with illustrations. But it's different when you go into the real environment and see what's happening. And I'm glad like some of you kids have memories of being in nature and interacting with nature. I was so happy to hear about like the jamun trees, and like again you feel the sense of loss like when the jamun trees are cut. So I'm so glad like Yuvan is doing such important work by, you know, educating kids and taking them out into nature and showing it to them. I hope like we all, you know, keep getting opportunities like that to actually go and immerse ourselves in nature, because it would be really sad if the only interaction we have is through books and through paper and not through like actually going there. And I hope we can, you know, figure a way out to deal with what all the complex issues, because it's not just environment, it's also like it's really complicated, interlinked and intersectional kind of issues. So through our stories we can bring that out. And I hope like I'm so glad to see so many people here. And of course like I do follow Rohan's work, but I'm so happy to see more work. Like I have new books to read, and I was actually looking for more stuff to read. So I'm gonna go through all the books that are in the list, and like, hopefully, yeah, I'm looking forward to being inspired by all of them. So yeah, thank you so much. And I would like to credit like Kalpavriksh and the work they do as well in bringing books to the public, because yeah, we have the book, but it needs to be distributed and disseminated. So I'm really happy that there are publishers who are doing this like Pratham and Kalpavriksh and events like this happening. So yeah, more power to everyone, and let's keep up the good fight. Yeah, okay, thank you.
More power to you, Anusha, because you're a believer. And if you're a believer, you will communicate that through your illustrations, through your beautiful work. And that's what will get to the children, to the readers, not just the children, all the readers. So more power to you and the fabulous work that you are doing in bringing nature to the children. Even where children are living in their condos and with their gadgets and whatever, you're still telling them that there is a dragonfly, there is a story, there is so much happening there. And thank you for that. Yeah.
Can I just add something, Archana?
Yes.
Just to say, Anusha, I'm so glad that you brought that up about taking children out into nature and the difference between experiencing something that's mediated, whether it's on screen or whether it's through a book or whether it's through a painting, and experiencing the real thing. Because that's actually where the spark of real genuine connection and therefore love and therefore care and therefore fierce protectiveness and all of that sense of connection that inspires all of us, that's where that comes from. I've been writing for the Guardian Country Diary column recently, and yesterday there was a meeting with all of the people who write these the Country Diary column, which is essentially a little snippet of a moment when you interact with the wild. Whatever form that might be. It might be a slug, it might be an eagle, you know, the whole sort of spectrum. It might be a plant. And recently the Guardian has started up, this year they started up this thing for the Young Country Diarists, and they put out a call to kids under the age of 16 to send in their nature writing. And the editor was saying, you know, they had just in 1 week, they had over 600 pieces in. And he said of those, 300 were not just good. And they were not just publishable, they were really good. They were really good. So, and each of those it's not about nature, it's an encounter with nature. It's not saying I read this really interesting book or I saw this amazing program. It's saying I tripped over a slug, or I heard a bird, or this thing happened. And I think that the real and the tangible stuff is so important that I don't know what I'm saying, I'm blabbering on a bit, but I'm just so glad that you said that, and I'm so glad that this festival has been so enabling of these children to feel the agency that they do have, and that they should have, and that they should have more of. And one of the things that occurred to me, while I think it was Celesta saying about doing a little bit, like realizing that you can do a little bit, and that lots of people doing a little bit adds up to a lot, reminded me of someone saying recently that, in terms of agency and power, especially in terms of issues to do with the climate crisis and the ecological crisis, the votes should simply all be given, like our democracy should simply be that everyone under the age of 30 can vote and no one else. And I just thought, my God, that's a bit of a radical idea. Like, I'm not sure I like that because I'm over 30, but they have a point. They have a point that you really need to take a long-term view on all of these issues, and the short-termism that is integral to our political systems. It's like their fundamental thing is that we need votes like with quick results. And that's just basically what has, I'm well known for swearing, and I may say bad things, so I'm not going to go there, but basically it's bad. It's got us to where we are.
Yes. Bijal has also worked. Bijal, you obviously, with all the books that you've been writing, and there was Cloud called Bhura, which really brings this to the fore in such important ways. Would you like to share something, add to what Anita has just said?
As Anita was talking, which I was nodding away, which happens a lot when Anita talks, because she's always saying such wonderful things. But I was researching for my next book, and one of the things that really frightened me was this term that came to me constantly. It's called environmental generational amnesia, which basically means that every generation perceives the environment as what they're born into, which means that they're living more and more in constructed environments. So that's what they perceive as nature. And the authors had given this example of something that actually made me laugh first, which said that children will, in built environments, will think of a squirrel as a big mammal and fountain as big water. And then it sobered me up, because it's just like, that is a frightening thought, that this is what we are perceiving nature as. It's very, very degraded, built up form. And for me, which is why green literature becomes very crucial, because it helps navigate these very, it helps bring back the forgotten. It helps you remember why nature is important. And Archana, I see this when you do it with, do sessions with your nerds. I think one of the most important things is that even when I go into classrooms, a lot of children will always be like, I want to save the planet. And I'm always like, let's step back a bit and let's talk about why we want to save it. Let's talk about the things we love, we want to remember. We want to look up and look at the skies, which are full of stars. We want to look at a caterpillar. And that's when the real conversation starts. And I just think that books are just one small way of making that conversation stay in, as Anusha said, collective memory.
Yes. And in fact, that's what when Ridhima was saying that she's an activist more than in terms of, she doesn't read too much. But that's what I tell my nerds and the parents who come in. You don't have to read. The world doesn't set, the sun doesn't rise and set in the pages of a book. Go out and see the real sun. So similarly as what you're saying, it doesn't have to be with a book. Step out of the book and do more. Whatever that more may mean for you. That more might mean, I have this little 7-year-old girl who says, Archana auntie, I want to plant a garden like Sundar Bagh, but I can't because there's so much of greenery where I'm living already. So her dad's, the place they live in Thane is very green. So instead she will send me photographs of mushrooms and snakes and monitor lizards, etc. But she's, I can't plant a garden, so I can't make the world greener. So there is this thing about books and stepping out of books and doing more, as what Anita was also talking about. Yeah. Anusha, would you like to share something?
Yeah, especially because the direct action that grassroots activists are doing and indigenous activists are doing, like, we don't even see half of it, like, which is, it's unglamorous, really, really hard work, really scary work. People get jailed. So, I mean, there's so much going on, and we are comfortably sitting and drawing it and communicating it to, like, people. We have that, I mean, there's privilege that comes while we're drawing it this way. But, like, the thing is, how long will we, I mean, it's good to be consuming and being inspired by the content, but ultimately, are we going to just sit and like read and be comfortable, like looking at all our pretty pictures? And when do we, like, how will it translate to something like direct action, or what are other things, like, because illustration and writing is one thing, but like the actual hard work is, I'm sure, like, if written, that's why it's great to have books about, like, centering like activists, like the 10 green superheroes. I'm looking forward to reading that one. And like, our job is to like bring all these things and get it to people who haven't been exposed to it at all. But there's also that sense, like, okay, I shouldn't get too, like, personally, I feel like I shouldn't get too comfortable and like be thinking, oh yeah, it's done now, because there's so much really, really, really hard work that is being done, that is not illustrated beautifully, that is really pushing things forward. So I just want to stay grounded that way. And like, that's why I really admire Rohan's work as well, because he really centers these issues in his comics, and it keeps me grounded, and I'm really glad. And I'm really hoping to, I'm definitely going to read all the books that are on the list. And that's all I just wanted to add, like, about that. Yeah.
In fact, Rohan, that's the thing. You, with your snake story, etc., you really have brought the messiness of life into your this thing. And I say messiness because I'm guilty of having killed snakes. When I was growing up in Devlali, we would have, I was what, class 2 or 3, and we would have snakes coming into they're in our washroom, they'd be under the bed or whatever. This was a place where there were a lot of snakes.
There's some good news for you in the book, Archana. One of the myths that we debunk is that snakes don't take revenge.
Yes, yes, the film Nagin. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So that was the other thing about the cobras. That if you kill a cobra, the eyes will capture your image, and their entire story about somebody who will take revenge. Yes. So no, so that's what when Anusha was saying that, yeah, we can sit back and create stories and do our illustrations, but actually what you're doing is the snakes, and you're taking them to children in a way which is just so much more fun. And at the same time, I mean, as I'm saying, I grew up saying, oh God, a snake, scary. It's still scary, but at least now it's not something that I'm going to kill immediately. But I'm also talking about a time where we did not have a telephone to call up somebody and say, there's a snake in the bathroom, what do I do? So those are different times, but the beauty in the way in which you're getting children to, look at creepy crawlies and snakes, etc. As Anusha is saying, one is just, what are we as illustrators doing, or what are we as writers doing? You are bringing these to children. You are bringing them into their, world. And at some point of time, how that reflects and where it takes them later, that is what we're going to, that's the seed of hope that we are planting. Yes. Supriya, would you like to share something more with us in terms of the beautiful stories that you told us about, again, making so much of it come alive for the children, again, in real stories?
My entire inspiration absolutely lay in real stories, because I was visiting these places and actually meeting people who had a connection with animals just by chance. So it was such a jogging of the memory, really, after all these years, to bring those stories together. But I did get a chance to then go back and speak to a lot of them, whether it was on the phone or actually go in person and meet them. And it was truly exciting, as I can imagine for Bijal as well, that having traveled and actually met those people, the level of inspiration is naturally amped up quite a bit. So I was so inspired, and I was so moved by their stories. Coming to the phase of the book was much later. So, and I think, as Anusha also said, that people are doing the work on the ground are really truly the heroes here, and not us folks who are putting it in words. So yeah, it was just a very exciting 15 years or so, really, of getting these stories together. But yeah, that's what I've had.
Yes. Okay, I think we are out of time. Are we short over our time? I'm not too sure.
I think we've been pretty good with the time.
Oh, okay.
Yes, I'm actually very glad. I was thinking maybe we not have enough time, but I'm really glad at how much time we've managed to have. I just do want to say very sorry that you couldn't join us due to some very unfortunate personal reasons. But to all the winners, our certificates are printed on 100% recycled paper. In fact, I think they've managed to source a special, my colleague Pooja and Benedict have managed to source this special kind of paper made of cotton rags. So yeah, I'm quite looking forward to how the certificates eventually get printed. There's also a trophy that is designed on sustainable materials by our partner Tamila. And there is a cash prize that we've managed to muster in our first year for all the winners. And there is a goodie bag from WWF. So yes, I feel like Santa handing out Christmas goodies end of the year. But really, thank you so much to all of you for being here. And for Archana, despite all your nerves, you have been absolutely fantastic in moderating the panel, I should say, because Archana is like, furiously, I am developing cold feet.
So nervous talking to all of you.
It was, I think what's really interesting for me is because I've of course read all of the books, and then to, hear from you all the process that goes into the book, because as readers, we read it, but then as I think it's always so fascinating to pick the brain of the people behind the books, because it's not that easy to write books, and it's even more difficult to market them. So, I am just so glad that all your books are on our first honor book list. I'm really delighted by the collection of books, and I really just hope that we can promote green literature in general on a larger scale. And really, I think Archana and I were talking earlier, our long list, our short list, all the discussions with the kids. I mean, really, I think green literature is such that we need to probably make space for more books and more people writing this literature, and encourage more voices to come into the field to get that right sort of messaging, not messaging, actually I hate the word messaging, but the right sort of narrative. I know Archana is going to later call me up and say, shoot, you use the word messaging in children's books, but but really, I mean, it's just fascinating. I mean, such original work, Anita Grave Byers, such an original story to look at death and to look at, nature within the paradigm of human existence. It's so beautifully sort of coming together. And Bijal and Radha, I know, sorry, Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, just going to add to that, that I think that the shortlist is just so brilliant because it kind of illustrates exactly how difficult it is to define the edges of what is nature writing or what is environmental books or what is a green book, because and this is something that anyone and everyone who's involved in the environmental side of things just goes on about all the time, but it's everything. There isn't a human world and an environment that's separate. It's everything. And with these books, we've got lists of real people doing real activism. We've got picture books. We've got funny books. We've got really serious books. It's kind of bringing, I think, the whole of your humanity to the project, and also being as inclusive as you can, because it's a hugely difficult and huge problem that we are facing individually, locally, collectively, nationally, globally, everything. Like, we need everyone on board with this. If we're not to, just end up with completely disaster.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I think one of the things we really wanted to do when we sat down to have this literature festival is not just pick, have books and then forget about them and award them and forget about them, but really, because it's like almost like a mission when we sit down and think about it. So it's not something we'd want to end now. We'd want to actually increase the outreach of the books. So we've been in conversations with people to hope to get more, kids reading. And, it was really fascinating to see some of the reactions to the long listed books that we sent to our little jury. I think it was just so amazing. So we're more and more convinced that we need to.
I'm really proud of the 5 books that, well, all of them, yes, but the 5 books that were made, it were just so, just about everything came together with the 5 books, and reflecting the diversity in the styles of writing and what we are writing about. I think I'm really proud of the books that we have here.
And, Bijal and Radha, the green superhero books, and, Supriya, I got my mother to read a tigress called Machli. And my mother's, she's been reading only children's books ever since I started my career, because she says they're just so much more readable than adult books for her. The font is bigger and the design is easier to maneuver and the writing is easier. And I must say, I mean, what Archana said about the stories being so unbelievable, and yet so like she couldn't get over the crocodile who ate like rice. Like, she's like, are you sure she saw this? Are you sure she saw this? I need to know. So I was like, I'm sure she saw this. She's put in a goddamn book. If she's lied, she'll get caught easily.
That's right here.
And, Anusha, Yuvan, and Rohan, I mean, what can I say, picture books and, just such different forms of looking at, the themes that were explored. Archana said enough about the books on our list, but really, I'm really happy because, I'm very happy to have had this opportunity to curate the children's program and to see the wonderful books that have been awarded. And yes, your Santa Christmas goodies should be reaching you in some time. I think all of you have sent in your details, but yes, a big thank you to all the panelists, to all our audience members who joined us today. It's just been fantastic, to hear your comments, to get your questions. You really enriched our, first year as a festival, and we hope that we can build a bigger dream as we go on.
A bigger green dream.
Sorry?
Green dream. Bigger green dream.
A bigger, greener dream. Yes, that's true. Can I have the banner for our partners, please? Because I think it wouldn't have been possible without our partners, WWF India, the India Climate Collaborative, Terry and Asli India, for being with us from the beginning of this journey. To our outreach partners, Books on the Delhi Metro. I mean, Shruti, your passion for everything green and everything books is just so endearing. And I think to all the people on the shortlists and to all the honorees, I think you should just go and see. Shruti's been running a contest for all the honor books. And she's going to be promoting all the books that have been, honored and shortlisted through her Earth Book Club on Instagram. So that's one of the outreach plans we have. To our partner Round Glass Sustain for all the wonderful, green coverage that they do. Funky Rainbow, I hope that we are able to contribute enough to raise a good budget for green books in your community library project, Vidya. Tamila, just such fantastic products made out of everything green, and Environics, for their contribution. Green Literature Festival is presented by Sustainability Next, which is an online e-magazine run by Benedict from Bangalore for the last, I think he started in 2013. And yes, the festival is supported by the Habitats Trust. A huge thank you to Santosh sir and everyone else at the Habitats Trust, Ms. Nader and Rushi, for, funding our dreams, literally. I think on that note, from the team, can I just have the festival team on screen, please? Benedict, Pooja, Dibarati, if you're here, Richa, Ganesh, MC, it'll be really nice to have all of you on screen because it's our last event of the year. And yes, I think we ought to have everyone on the team on screen. Can everyone come in, please? I see Pooja. And Richa's here.
Yeah, everyone's on, I think.
Everyone's there?
Yeah, Rohan's there.
Okay, I can't see Benedict.
He's here. He's only muted. Yeah.
Okay, maybe he's not showing in my gallery.
Only
Okay,
Debarati is missing.
Okay. So that is the festival team. It's a very lean team. So we apologize for any glitches that have happened, but all unintentional and all because, we've been struggling a little bit. But yes, I think very, very happy with how this has gone. And since it's the last event of the year, we wish all the panelists, we wish all our audience and everyone who has tuned in a very peaceful and joyful year end. And if you have any questions or comments or suggestions, please do write into us at contact@greenlitfest.com. And we promise to see you next year, 2022, with a bigger and better festival. But in the meantime, yes, please do have a peaceful and joyful new year and stay safe, stay healthy. See you next year. Bye-bye. Bye. From all of us, on the team, a huge goodbye.